So obviously, as you pointed out, it became a very well-known place from some of it from the people who visited there, the celebrities, but also, as you pointed out more than once, some of the films and other media that have been filmed there. What in your research? What is there anything in particular that led filmmakers to decide that they wanted to associate themselves with the plaza?
I don't think they even know themselves. Take example. When he was, what did you name your play the Plaza Suites? It would have been just as effective to have it as the Ritz Suites or the Waldorf Suites. He just quite frankly said, I never considered placing it anywhere else. It wasn't even almost a conscious decision. But other producers, such as Hitchcock and Spielberg, it was the draw. It was the draw of the hotel, and it's more than any other place. It says New York. It says a volume. You could look at the plaza, and it tells you it's elegant, it's New York, and it's a legendary and a little scandalous and a little glamorous all at the same time. So you don't even have to open your mouth, and I think that's what attracted a lot of filmmakers to film there. Even crazy movies like The Pickle, which I did not know was filmed there, but it's Danny Aiello, and I think it proves that drugs were running rampant in Hollywood during that time, because the story's about this giant pickle that lands in front of the Plaza Hotel. Mm-hmm. And starring Danny Aiello, but they felt they wanted to film in front of the plaza, that it just added to the story, that people would recognize that hotel again rather than maybe the Pierre Hotel. It's not as telling, or the St. Regis Hotel, or any of the other top drawer hotels in the city. I think it was just, like I write in the book, it just says a lot about what you're conveying. It says volumes without opening its mouth.
Yeah, one of the what I thought was one of the more interesting in some of my reviewing of learning about the plaza was the fact that the Sopranos TV show actually harkened back to the Eloise books by having them. Carmela and her daughter, as you point out, the tea or the luncheon that they do, as far as being in the plaza.
Yeah, it covers all walks. It's not just the upper crust, high society. It's just everybody. Everybody knows about Eloise, everybody, in the Northeast at least. But I tell you, I've been blanketing the country, talking to people, and even if they've never been to New York, they've heard about the Plaza Hotel and Eloise and a lot of other people. And luckily, Eloise was written by Kay Thompson, and we think night, and we're lucky enough to still have Hillary with us, and he was just wondering, but telling his adventures and drawing Eloise at the plaza, and just this scamp that lived in the penthouse apartment. And a funny story again, I know I said that before, Joel, but when the plaza closed for renovation, when they thought they were going to be converting the whole thing to condos, they closed, but they retained a doorman, Ed Trinka, who had been with them for like 40 years. And they, quite frankly, made the job for him. They didn't want to let him go. And he just stood outside this closed hotel. But I, again, got to talk to Ed before he passed away, and he said, what people asked him more than anything, they didn't say, what's going on? Why is the plaza closed? They say, oh, the plaza's closed. Where's Eloise? And, he would make up all these stories and
So,
the series.
right. So basically, then the Plaza has appeared in books, it's appeared in films, it's appeared in television shows, and it's actually important for music as well. It definitely was known for its music, its home as a home for musicians for performing.
Right, right. The Beatles wrote Michelle while they were staying there. John Lennon stayed there. Stevie Wonder's written there. Again, it's the place. Stevie Wonder would stay at the Plaza and ask for a room overlooking Central Park. Now, we all know Stevie Wonder's blind. Why would he want a room overlooking Central Park? And he was actually asked that. They said, of course, we'll give you, whatever you want. That's what the Plaza does. But he said he wanted to just picture it. And he wrote songs there.
And of course, people performed even in the Persian Room and other in the hotel.
Right, definitely. That's what it was. The nightclubs of that era. You had, pick a name again, whether it's Andy Williams and his brothers performing there, or the Letterman, on and on. Pick some very successful performers, and they are like the opposite end of the Playboy Club, because you did not start out at the Plaza. You had to be great to perform at the Plaza. You had to be Liza Minnelli or Jack Jones or Leslie Uggams to get into the Persian Room. And then you had other, smaller venues in the Plaza playing music. Throughout the years, the many years they were open, the decades. And also I have a section in the book that I call Paparazzi Press Parties and Premieres, the 4 Ps. And when movies come out and the producers and directors can once again pick anywhere to have their opening night parties, many of them choose the Plaza, or if there's a press release, they want the Plaza as a backdrop. So it has just been the go-to spot for so many things. So many weddings were had there. Carol Lawrence and Robert Goulet were married there. Pat Lawford got married there. Pat Kennedy married her husband there. Just on and on. As I said, Liz Taylor and Richard Burton were there often. So often they wanted their room, and it was eventually called the Elizabeth Taylor Room. So many, many decades of history and tradition.
So obviously one of the other interesting or useful, not useful, the interesting things about the book are the photographs. Obviously any book devoted to the Plaza or any kind of landmark hotel or location, it's the photos that add to the whole thing. So how were you able to pull together so many different photos that so nicely describe and show the hotel?
Again, just a lot of hard work, a lot of going around to first locate them, and then negotiating rights to be able to print them in the book. And I totally agree. I could have just narrated the story, and it still would have been a fascinating story. But heck, who doesn't want to look at a photograph of Robert Redford and Barbra Streisand in the way we were, and remember that movie and be transported back to that time, or look at a picture of Bridget Bardot or Marilyn Monroe. I thought that my readers, would enjoy that in addition to my narration.
So Is the Plaza? I think you mentioned a little while ago that they were filming. The last time you were there, or they were filming there again. But is the Plaza still considered to be an important place to be as far as not just for media, but also for movies and things, but also for the well-known people or the wealthy?
Definitely. It is. It really is. Pick any aspect of it. The Plaza is the go-to place for, it used to be society weddings, and now it's just weddings in general. And when they were filming Bride Wars there, and you might not be familiar with that movie, being a guy, but I just loved it. It had Anne Hathaway and Kate Hudson and Candice Bergen, and it was about the importance of having your wedding at the Plaza Hotel. So, people book a year in advance. If you decide to get married 6 months from now, pick another venue. But yes, it's really the place to be. This most recent movie that I just saw being filmed there a couple weeks ago was a period piece. I found out, I think it was something about Katharine Graham. So they had old cars in front of the Plaza, and filming there. Even the rappers and current not movie stars, but singers, they do music videos there. It's the go-to place still. It has not gone down in popularity one iota. I still see on any given occasion, any movie premiere party from, Shrek and 101 Dalmatians to, just any number of other parties there. It's to answer your question in a very long-winded way, yes, it is still the go-to place. It's still the place where you can say, like I just saw, I was watching a rerun of Castle, the TV show, and Susan Sullivan tells Castle, I'm going to the Plaza. You can find me there when you get this all worked out. So you just know, it's like an inside joke, like, oh my gosh, the Plaza, of course, it's, you say the Plaza and that's New York.
So, yeah, it's interesting. You're right that I'm wondering what. I know there's a couple of things that are about Katharine Graham that are currently being filmed, including Spielberg's film about the Pentagon Papers.
I think that was the one.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that was the one, actually, with Tom Hanks.
Right. It's Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep plays Katharine Graham in the film. So that's interesting to know that's because it's related. The film that they're making is related to the Pentagon Papers, which were released first published by the New York Times, but then the Washington Post got involved as well. So I'm sure that's where Katharine Graham comes into the whole thing, because it's an interesting concept that even now, of course, she was known for she was a friend of Truman Capote's, so that's where the Plaza was. She was known for the Plaza for that as well. So
yeah, that was her go-to place. So, having a party, it was there. Entertaining, it was there. I was before she passed. And so many people I interview, we hit it off, and we try and stay in touch. And I had interviewed Celeste Holmes, the Academy Award-winning actress, and we became friendly. And we wanted to get together for lunch. And she said, how about the Plaza? I'll meet you in the Palm Court. So she and her husband and I, we were having lunch in the Palm Court, and Aretha Franklin comes in with her entourage. So, and those two women are vastly different types, but they both like the Plaza. That was at the same time, where they both wanted to have lunch. So it just attracts everybody. It's so fascinating. The Oak Bar is closed right now, but the Palm Court's open, and often I'll just go and have lunch there and spend as long as I can there, and people watch. People come in, and some are recognizable, and often I'll sit in the corner and just make up stories about the other ones, that I know they're a Russian diplomat and they're doing something undercover and they're probably going to meet with some politician or something. I don't know. But definitely an interesting place.
So obviously you've now written two books about Playboy, two aspects of Playboy, not about just Playboy, and now two books about the Plaza. What other kind of writing, or do you have other projects going on, preferably not multiples that come out at the same time again?
I know. I do. I always have ideas backed up. I have too many ideas. People always ask me, they want to hire me to write their life story or their autobiography, and I'd probably make, way more money doing that than doing what I do, but I don't have time, and I always turn them down and say, no, I have another book I'm working on. Again, of course, entertainment history, that's what I do, and I think I might do a book about the Copacabana. That intrigues me for a number of reasons. And then I still have one more book about Playboy, and it's going to round out what I call the Playboy Chronicles or the Playboy Trilogy. And it's about what you alluded to earlier, the great writing. Hefner, if he did nothing else, he hired the very best.
Right.
And I mean, when I say the very best, the cream of the crop, for his actors, for his writers, people like Ian Fleming, who wrote 7 stories for Playboy before they were ever picked up for the big screen and became On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Diamonds Are Forever and all the great Bond movies we enjoy. He had Alex Haley write for the magazine before
Right.
he wrote Roots. And so anyway, that's what I'm turning my attention to next.
Well, that's good because as we've talked about, and Playboy, it is an important part of American culture, not just for the magazine, but the photographic part of the magazine, but also the cultural aspect and the writers and the interviews. There are still many Playboy interviews that if you read them, they're just unbelievable. John Lennon, for example, did a famous Playboy interview, and all of those. It's just great that that you're taking the time and having time to really give them their due because they are very well. They are very good and worth the time to learn more about. The good thing is because it's print, everything still exists, so we can even read them still, which is even better.
Right. And what amazes me is Playboy began 1954, and here we are in 2017, and there has been nothing written about the entertainers. There's been a bazillion books written about the bunnies and the centerfolds and biographies of Hugh Hefner and the girls next door, and even Playboy-sponsored golf tournaments. But there's nothing talking about the comedians and how Hugh Hefner broke the color barrier and put, Red Fox and Flip Wilson and Dick Gregory on stages, almost in defiance of the segregation laws that we had up until 1964, or just the great, great people like, from every aspect. Mel Torme and Cy Coleman to Ike and Tina Turner performed at one place or another in the Playboy empire, whether it was a TV show or a club or, again, the festival. So, absolutely.
Well, that's great to hear because, like I say, it is an important part. Just as the Plaza is an important part of not only Hollywood but New York history. And the people that are, and still to this day, as I don't know if you mentioned it specifically, but it's on the National Register of Historic Places, so it's known for its importance to the United States and in particular New York City as one of those landmarks, those standout places in the city.
You're right. I compare it in the book. I say as much as the Statue of Liberty, the Met, Yankee Stadium, that the Plaza is a New York icon, and it's shorthand for New York itself.
And of course, Yankee Stadium's not even the same Yankee Stadium anymore. So
Right.
uh, the Plaza even outlived Yankee Stadium.
There you have it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate taking the time to talk to me. And like I say, I'm glad that you've been able to find such interest, get the information out. Because as you pointed out, and some of the other things you've written, the lack of archives for some of these, not only places, but some of the other things that the part of culture, it's useful to have the background. And as you point out, as people get old and pass away, that we need to do what we can to try to save this information and this knowledge so that people understand the historical importance of the culture in the United States.
Right. I was being interviewed, and somebody said, well, a very young interviewer, and I'm not that old, but she said, why do you do what you do? And I said, because these folks, we don't have them around forever, and they're our libraries. Once they're gone, once Andy Williams is gone, all the stories that weren't told are gone. So I really consider it a responsibility that I have.
Well, as I say, you're doing a very good job of it, because like I say, the book is very, very interesting. Like I say, it's great to read about a building as and its life and its still existing life, and so I hope people reach out for it, because it's definitely worth the time, and even for the photographs alone. But the information you provide is just very useful and interesting. So, thank you for finding time to talk to me, and I hope your 2 books are very successful.
Thank you so much, Joel, and thank you for inviting me.
My great thanks to Patty for her time. The book is a fascinating look at a still vital hotel in New York City. This is Joel.